We're going to get into contact lenses. We're going to get into sports vision training. We're going to get into why vision matters when it comes to performance.
Today on the NeuroVision Edge podcast, we're joined by Dr. Allen, one of the pioneers behind vision training at the highest level of sport. Dr. Allen spent nearly 2 decades with Nike as their global research director for vision sciences, where he helped apply cutting-edge vision research to elite performance, including work that led to performance lenses used by NFL athletes and other top-level competitors. He co-developed the Nike MaxSight contact lens and later co-founded Performance Vision Technologies, where he led the creation of Altius, the first single-use performance-tinted contact lens now trusted by elite athletes looking to see faster, react quicker, and gain an edge.
When people ask me, what's your career about? And I say, it's really about how to maximize where and when in the future in a dynamic reactive sport. It's beginning to maximize these 2 satellites in your GPS system.
If you had to pick the biggest visual mistake, would you then say it's not getting the correct correction, meaning not having the best dynamic visual acuity?
I would say it starts out just with this versus this.
Okay.
Are they maximized and are they equal? If you look at the whole population, obviously you have incredible athletes that are long careers and they're playing phenomenal. How much
like Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, exactly.
You had a lot of work with Nike. Can you share with us a little bit about how you developed those contacts, how they came about, and how they help athletes?
Absolutely. Dr. Karl Citek, a colleague of mine at Pacific University, and I've worked more with him on technology development. The one thing the founder, Ms. Phil Knight, felt was we should take care of athletes head to toe.
A lot of NFL players use the amber. Are there any tints that are better for certain sports that you recommend?
It's the gray-green tint.
If we talk about your 2 main colors right now, who would be better suited for amber versus who would be better suited for gray-green? Welcome everyone to NeuroVision Edge podcast. Today with me, I have a literal legend. I don't get to say this much because this individual has almost 50 years of experience in the field of sports vision and performance. Today's guest is Dr. Allen Reichow, and he's one of the true pioneers of sports vision. His work has pretty much defined how elite athletes train and apply vision at the highest level. With over 4 decades of those experiences spanning Olympic teams, NFL, and even Nike Innovation Labs, where he was working full-time with Nike to develop systems that don't just test vision, but they can change careers. We're going to get into contact lenses. We're going to get into sports vision training. We're going to get into why vision matters when it comes to performance. And Dr. Allen is going to let us pick his brain and give us the best in everything that he knows, right?
I'll do my best. Those 40 years plus take a little bit of a toll, but I'm keeping the mind active. So I look forward to it.
We really appreciate your time. But if we jump in, let's just jump straight in. You've worked with Olympic teams, NFL players. I mean, heck, you played D1 ball, and you've had family that played in NFL, right?
Yeah, my father played 10 years in the NFL. I was born when he was a freshman quarterback at the University of Iowa, and then he went on to play in the NFL for 10 years and had 2 NFL championship rings. And then he remained when he retired from play. Then he remained in the NFL in the front office, player personnel, running drafts, that sort of stuff. 64 years, I guess, was his total career, and he retired in January of 2020. And he's still doing fun stuff. So
that's amazing. Amazing. You got a good mentor there.
Yeah, pretty good, and was raised around a lot of pretty. Didn't realize how good I had it, but was raised around a lot of pretty well-known figures in sport. And back then, they really played the game for the love of the game. It was right. It was something. So, yeah.
So now if we talk about, let's say, while you worked with those teams, those players, the pro athletes, the ones you were been around for many years, what is the biggest visual mistake that even elite level athletes make that costs them performance?
Boy, if I go back to the very beginning, and actually what got me interested in this, I have a brother that's a much younger brother that's total blindness. So, that was a key part of it, obviously being around in the sports world. and just watching, kids in the classroom, and I've always had a passion around vision, again, originating mainly from my brother. But as I was, in high school and stuff, I needed a vision correction, and the eye doctor we had identified, it was actually Department of Motor Vehicles. A lot of times that's where that spike is, and I had to get a correction. And playing sport, I was like, let's put some contact lenses on, and it was a game changer for me. And without that correction, the optometrist I was with, who knows if I would have had a college scholarship and gone on to play and such. But being raised in that environment at the NFL level, from ball boy on up, they weren't even testing TZVECL. They assumed, and the late great Bud Grant, who was a tremendous outdoorsman, told me, and he had a tremendous sense of humor. I had found something with one of the players and that, and he said, it's kind of like a hunting dog. He's a really good hunter and stuff. He said, if you don't have a good nose with a hunting dog, then you get another hunting dog. So it's like, oh, okay. But the old school thought was, to be at this level, you have to see perfectly. And that was the assumption back then. And at the very beginning back then, they weren't even lifting weights, etc. And then as you move forward, you saw coaches, the younger coaches coming on going, there's more to this. And my, at that point it was this, there is something more to this. And, guiding the late Blanton Collier, famous coach from Cleveland Browns, he coined the phrase, the eyes lead the body. And he coined that phrase from watching video of his guards that would pull, on those famous Cleveland Browns teams, but they'd snap their head, and that's the way they'd coach, snap their head to where they want to go. And it was, okay, vision is the guiding sense. So, and over the years, it's, again, my first project was in undergrad when I was playing collegiate football, and I was fortunate to be around an optometrist there that shared a similar interest in that. And I shared stories I had, and we said, let's do some testing on the wide receivers off your team and stuff, and see if because they, what they see in static visual acuity, or the TZVECL, if that correlates to how clearly they see the ball in motion. And that was really back towards the beginning of, dynamic acuity versus static acuity. And the one doesn't predict the other. You need to have the static of visual acuity to allow, dynamic. But yeah, so that
just before you get too deep into it,
sure.
I'm just going to explain static versus dynamic. Static would be like if you're in the exam chair and you're looking at some letters at the SMELM chart, versus dynamic is when you're out on the field and looking for different objects, different, seeing the ball, maybe seeing the stitches on the ball, and you're not in a seated environment, just sitting there.
Exactly. And, what does sitting in a chair in an exam lane straight ahead to this funny looking machine at high contrast TZVECL letters out there, what does that have to do with, as you mentioned, on the field, tracking the moving target while your head's moving, you're moving, the ball's moving, anticipation, timing? And when people ask me, well, what's your career about? And I said, really, when you simplify it down, it's really about how to maximize where and when in the future in a dynamic reactive sport. It's beginning to maximize these two satellites in your GPS system. And there's a bunch of different cues to depth perception. A lot of them, I have 6 of them each eye alone, texture and shadow and all these sorts of things. But then you get the fine-tuned one of the 2 satellites of your GPS system, right shoulder, left shoulder. So yeah, you're absolutely right. The static acuity, after they started doing the testing of the static acuity, even though they'd set the bar maybe at the legal limit to drive or something, and this was at the NFL level, once they started integrating that, then we need to talk about both eyes together, maximizing the 2 together. And so it was, again, it's come a long ways. It's so exciting on vision care for people no matter what they do in life and maximizing it. But it's been a fun and very interesting journey to watch how the sports world and sports medicine, and then when all the concussions came on, and boy, that involves vision. Yep, it's up here in the brain. And optometry, vision care has been elevated because if you look at most teams now and at the elite sports level, they have sports scientists, they have vision scientists, and at the tip of the sphere, vision is one of the key points at the tip of the sphere now. And that's whether, to performance or to concussion recovery, return to play.
Yeah.
But it's,
So going back to the question, if you had to pick the biggest visual mistake, would you then say it's not getting the correct correction, meaning not having the best dynamic visual acuity? That would be the biggest visual mistakes that even elite athletes cost when it comes to performance?
I would say it starts out just with this versus this.
Okay.
Are they maximized and are they equal? Just to start out with. And
simple. Are they maximized or are they equal?
Yep. And that's where you get started. I call it the hardware. Always have. And then we can do all the things behind with the software. We talk about the depth perception, anticipation, timing, right shoulder, left shoulder, angles of gaze, all these sorts of things. But you got to have the hardware dialed in first. And that's, clarity, contrast, if it's tints, because the lighting environments these athletes are in, depending on the sport and indoor, outdoor, the LED lighting systems now in the stadiums and arenas and a game of golf, you've got different angles of gaze, the sun at different angles, the undulations of the green. And so it's fascinating. It's exciting. And we've learned a lot over the years with all the research and all the clinical care and, all the experts like yourself. And as you and I had talked about before, it's learning from each other, learning from every patient, athlete, trainer, coach experience, interaction to help us do better in the future. And a lot of times it raises questions of, didn't think about that.
Yeah.
So again, back to your initial question, and to this day, you still see it, is that there still is not a full awareness, but it's changed dramatically of how important one versus two, maximizing them and equalizing them, whatever environment they're in. That's changed a whole lot. Again, that's, if you go way back, it was assumed that you saw perfectly. And you'd hear athletes all the time say, I had perfect vision. Well,
I heard that yesterday.
And the funny one,
yesterday.
Yes. And the funny one is when they'll say, I'll never need glasses. I'll never need a correction. It's like, well, as you age, you'll be knocking on the door.
Yeah.
But,
they don't want to hear that though.
No, they don't. So it's, and then when you bring this out to the sports medicine, athletic trainers, et cetera, that we conducted research. I was with a lot of great colleagues, brilliant minds, still am. The Dr. Bradley Coffees, the Dr. Karl Citek, and interns and doctors out there over the years. But, early study we looked at, and it was a big one, is coming up with 17 different skills that we would assess. And then we said, how do those change over time? So we had teenage up to 90 some years of age, got driver's license, but we measured them on all of this population. It was a huge study, but we found that vision peaked, virtually all these skills, 17 skills, they would peak in the late teens, early 20s. Physical maturation, if you talk to those in that world, is in the mid to late 20s. So the vision side of things and sensory peaks earlier. And then all of a sudden, it really plummets when we get to the 40s and stuff like that. But every one of these skills, statistically significant drop by decade, hitting into the, from the 20s to the 30s, 40s, and on up. So that was
one of the...
You're saying
that like a college football player would have better vision than let's say a NFL player who is maybe 5 years in?
If you look at the whole population on the averages, you have obviously you have incredible athletes that are long careers and they're playing phenomenal. How much
like Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, exactly. That was amazing to watch that.
Wasn't it?
It was truly amazing. And his stats were like, really? They were off the wall. And that was a fun one to see. And, you look at some of the other greats over the years that had such long, incredible careers. And obviously as they play over time, they learn experiential and everything. And you hear about automaticity and all that sort of stuff. But it's that combination of the two. But again, back to your initial question, which leads me to bring up one other thing. Still work with a lot of, like yourself and, pro athletes, we'll call, or teams, trainers that I've worked with over the years, we'll call and say, hey, we've got this athlete. The four things I'll ask them right away, is, are they up to the projected performance level, given all the desire, strength, coachability, smarts, all of this? Are they performing to that level that the coach who knows that athlete best thinks they should be? Number two is, are they consistent? And then, is there performance deterioration over time? And then, is there performance deterioration under different lighting conditions? And when I have, especially those first two, if you have those first two, we're not reaching the potential based on, the coach's projection. It might be, they draft, they get all these numbers. My father ran a draft for years and stuff. And he said, yeah, the numbers are good, but he says, you got to know what's in here and stuff. And, but those first two, my experience over the years, if you have those first two where, not consistent, not up to potential, then well over 90% of the time, my experience has been that we find something that's contributing or causing it. And back to the research with Dr. Bradley Coffey and Karl Citek and all these great, brilliant minds and other institutions around the U.S. and around the world investigating the role of vision in human performance. You look at, can we do something about it? So oftentimes we'd never test color vision unless it was really necessary, because if you find something like that, and I saw this happen to some docs before, well, it's like, we found a color deficiency, and 90% of the males are deuteranomous, a color deficiency. They identify it, and then the coach is going, great. So what are you going to do? And it's, well, we really can't do much about it. Then why would you tell my athlete and get into their head?
Yeah.
I saw that a couple different
Not
times.
only that, you tell the coach, they might cut them, or they might not play them.
Exactly. And again, when all the measures we can do something about, we know that from all the research over the years, whether it's a correction, whether it's a tint, whether it's training. And again, let's do things that have return. And when I go back, when someone's a doc, a young one coming out is working with a player or an athlete, a coach at the beginning, I said, go for the low hanging fruit. Always do that first. You get immediate return.
Yeah. And
you've seen that. And then you've got, once you've done that and they see it on the field right away, you got a contact lens correction, or, many over the years, many times you'll have correction on one eye, not on the other. The one thing that I've been noticing a lot of recently is, and this goes to this, what we're doing on here and this, it's becoming really obvious that it is changing vision for the best. For many of the best athletes as well. Yeah. I've kept an archive of a lot of the vision testing did back decades ago. You didn't see many that did not reach, better than 20/20. You didn't see that very often. We're seeing a heck of a lot more of it now. And this last year now, with one of the docs, and my role has always been to go in and help the doc and help the team, but not to be the doc for the team. It's just come in and help, with all these years.
Right, it's like a consultant.
Yeah.
So can you explain that in a basic way?
Yeah.
So viewers can understand what that means, the before, many decades ago when you did the testing compared to the results now, what the difference is.
Yeah. And, if there was enough hours in the day, would, design a study to look at it, but, got a lot of retrospective data. Years ago, professional athletes, really good, collegiate athletes, we surveyed, starting in 1980, we surveyed all major professional sports teams in North America, the head trainer we went to, because they were there longest, they knew the healthcare and stuff. We surveyed them about vision in sport. And it was actually a long title, was knowledge, that's your sports vision care, knowledge, utilization, expansion, role potential. And we did that with professional, I think 2 of them were published, peer reviewed. About every 5 years we did that. And we'd expand, we'd keep the same questions, but we'd expand the questions based on new technologies, and we'd run statistics and all that sort of stuff. But you went to the athletic trainers for professional sports teams, all the major league professional sports teams, D1, high budget scholarship, collegiate, D3, non-scholarship, lower budget, and then obviously to optometry, eye docs around North America. And we did that every 5 years to see what was changing over time. And, the percentage, it was a really, extensive survey questions. And it was, it was fun to see even that was changing in terms of the athletic trainers saying, hey, we now set, some of them were saying we're 20/40, or some of them will say, at the very beginning, we really don't do that much, especially at the D3 level.